Hey everybody, welcome to Confined Space Awareness and Working at Heights. These are annual awareness trainings that we do every year. Please pay attention. These are two topics that are merged into one, so this is a little longer than normal, but you should still be able to get through it pretty quick. In this training module, we're going to go over what is required in this annual training. We're going to define a confined space. We're going to name a few of the confined spaces that we have here. I'm going to talk about what is and is not a permit required confined space, who can enter a confined space, and our basic confined space entry rules. All employees must be able to recognize a confined space in this facility. Confined spaces on this site must be clearly marked and labeled. If you should ever notice a label is missing or it's hard to read, please complete a safety F tag so it can be fixed. All confined spaces must have a sign reading "Danger, Confined Space, Do Not Enter," or some other similar language outside the confined spaces to warn everyone of the danger. Here's an example of a confined space sign. As we learn from signs and tags, there's a big danger sign up there, and then confined space or permit required confined space, and basically do not enter. If you have been trained in confined space entry and rescue, we have a few places where employees can enter confined spaces, but for the most part, we use a third party contractor to do all of our confined space entry. But we want to make sure that you recognize what the confined spaces are so you can avoid them at all costs. OSHA says a confined space is an area that is large enough for an employee to enter, and it has limited or restricted means to get in or out of it, and it is not designed for continuous employee use. In a nutshell, the difference between a permit required confined space and a non-permit required confined space is simply this. If it is a permit required space, it means that there's something in there that can hurt you. All right, it has atmospheric hazards, bad air. There could be something in there that could engulf you, either liquid or a solid. And then there could be mechanical hazards such as sharp blades, drop offs, things like that. All right. So a permit required confined space does contain or have the potential to contain hazards capable of causing death or serious physical harm. Some examples of our confined spaces in this facility are mixed tanks. We've got dryers, holding bins, silos, compactors. Basically anything that fits the three criteria we talked about before is considered a confined space. Our basic confined space rules in Independence are that a thorough risk analysis and JSA will be completed for each entry. We have a permit required confined space entry in progress. A signed permit will be posted outside the confined space. Only trained and authorized entrants can enter a confined space, and there must always be a rescue plan and equipment in place before anyone can enter a confined space. One big confined space rule is that only trained and authorized personnel and contractors can enter a confined space. If you should happen to see somebody getting into a confined space who you don't think is authorized to be in there, please let your supervisor know. All right, we want to make sure everybody goes home safe, and climbing in a confined space where there could be serious potential hazards is not the way to go home safe. OSHA says that we have a confined space inventory. That inventory must include the numbered location of each space, the known hazards and dimensions of each space, a written rescue plan and air monitor requirements for that space, and any required PPE that must be worn to enter that space. Our emergency procedures for confined space entry, there must always be a rescue plan and equipment in place before anyone can enter a confined space. The rescue team must be trained and have the appropriate rescue equipment on site prior to entering a confined space. If you are a Unilever employee, Unilever uses the Independence Fire Department as our rescue service. Contractors must have their own rescue team and rescue equipment in place. A basic confined space in this facility looks very much like this tank. You can see that it has a hatch which gives it a limited means to get in and out of it. It is big enough for an employee to get in, but it's obviously not designed for continuous employee use. So those three things make it a confined space. You can see the caution confined space label on there. Once again, if there's any label that is damaged or missing, please let me know. Please write a safety F tag. Let's get that fixed so nobody accidentally gets into a confined space. Here's another example of a confined space. This is our baler compactor out in Zero Landfill. You can see here that there are two confined space labels on this compactor. And this is a place that we do not want to get in, not want to be, not want to have that compactor come down on top of you when you're inside. All right, the only way we would ever allow anyone inside of this is to follow our confined space entry rules and procedures. The machine has to be locked out. There has to be a rescue plan and equipment, all the things we've discussed. So to wrap up this training module, I want you to remember that a confined space is large enough for an employee to enter, and it has limited or restricted means to get in or out of it, and it is not designed for continuous employee use. Remember that only trained and authorized independence personnel and trained and authorized contractors are ever allowed to enter a confined space in this facility. All right, let's get started with the working at heights general awareness training. This isn't very long, it's pretty short. We don't have a lot of working at heights work that our average employees perform in this plant, so this is just general awareness training. All right, why is fall protection important when working at heights? Mainly because falls are among the most common causes of serious work-related injuries and deaths. We have a lot of fatalities and a lot of serious injuries every day in the United States. Most common causes are people falling off of ladders, falling through fragile roofs, through floor openings, falling off the unprotected edges of buildings. So we really want to give you a good general awareness training on this to make sure you understand why it's important to have fall protection in the facility. All right, there's two general rules when it comes to working at heights. If you're working in general industry, like in this manufacturing plant, any fall greater than 4 feet, you have to have rails in place, or you have to have some type of fall protection. Any fall greater than 6 feet above ground, that has to do with construction. So it's 4 feet in our manufacturing plant, 6 feet in construction. Now, having said that, anytime there's a chance where you could fall to a lower level where there are other hazards like moving machinery or something that could hurt you, once again, there has to be some type of fall protection in place for that. We've discussed ladder safety in other modules before, so real quickly, let's go through this. A-frame and leaning ladders must only be used by our maintenance people. All right, these ladders are not to be used for production operational purposes. All right, before anybody can use a ladder, the task must be assessed to determine whether it's safe to use the ladder. Anytime you use a ladder or a working platform, you must inspect it first. All right, make sure you check the feet, the rungs, check any locking mechanism, check the treads on the step ladder. Make sure that it's in good shape before you get on it. Make sure there's nothing on it, that it's clean, that it's dry, that there isn't any chance of you slipping on anything. When it comes to fall protection, there are two general means of control measures. One is a fall protection system, retractable lanyard, a full body harness, an anchor point. You put all these on, and that way if you were to fall, The retractable lanyard would catch you. It would not let you fall down below and be hurt. The other way is a guardrail system. We have these on all our working platforms, top rail, mid rail, 4-inch toe board. The very best control measure we can use for working at heights is to avoid working at heights if possible. Do as much work from the ground as you can, maybe use an extendable tool, utilize appropriate lifting devices such as man lifts, maybe work from an existing work platform if you can reach it. And we always want to make sure we cover and secure any holes in the floor to prevent any fall hazard. So in summary, we want to make sure that all work at heights activities require special training. And if you're going to do any work at height activities, that you have that special training first. Work at heights activities requires a permit for some things, working on the roof, working on top of silos, things of that nature. If you're just going to get up on a working platform with the rail, it doesn't require a permit and it doesn't require any specialized training. What it does require, though, is that you check the ladder and the platform before you get on it, and you make sure that it is in good serviceable shape and that there isn't any debris or dirt or anything on it that might create a slip, trip, or fall hazard. All right. If we have any additional training that you will need to work at heights, Unilever will make sure that you get it. Okay, guys, that's it for these 2 short annual awareness trainings. Please take the time to answer all quiz questions. You will be notified if you need to retake the training. If your quiz has too many wrong answers on it, you will be asked to take it again. So please focus on it. Please do a good job on it. I appreciate your time and attention and making things safe in the plant.